Hello, everyone, and welcome to Ignite, Awaken, Expand podcast. And today I have the beautiful, amazing Chrystal Rose, who has such a freaking amazing name. I wish it was mine. Oh, I'm so happy you're here, Chrystal.
I'm so happy you're having me here. So
Yeah. So today we're gonna be talking about a pretty light topic. No big deal, just God trauma. And so so yeah, I wanna just go right into it. This is something we are kind of going back and forth on, what do we want to conversate about? And you brought up this subject, and I'm like, yes, yes. Because I feel like not only has it been such a powerful process for both of us, and I'm so excited to hear your experience. I feel like so many people can relate to just really having a difficult time navigating the relationship with God. Is there even a God? What is God? And having a lot of wounding around it from just the way that they grew up, or just how society portrays God, the religion that they were in, XYZ.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, what is your story? And just how have you navigated that?
So gosh, there's so much. So when I was younger, my parents weren't like super religious. Like my mom at one point, I think probably starting in like the second grade, started like bringing us to like a congregational church, so it wasn't like real hardcore religion. I did go to a Catholic school, so that was definitely, but it was for the education, and I had all the theology and all of that. But my first like real kind of like, I guess like, I don't want to say defining moment, but something that really hit me when I was young, I think I was probably like 11, was my cousin, my uncle and like his wife, and then her kids, they were from a previous marriage. They were all very, very religious, like deeply, deeply religious. And there was this one night, it was summer, we we're all at this like beach house, and she told me my mom was going to hell.
Wow.
Yeah. And she said, because, when my mom got remarried, my stepfather had money. He was like this nerdy little engineer. He created like really the basis of computer networking, like ridiculous. Okay. So this guy's like a genius, right?
Yeah.
She marries my stepdad, and she's like always giving to her family, always like paying for like the beach houses that everyone stayed in, all of this stuff. So she said, your mom puts money first, and then her family, and then God. And she's going to hell. And I feel sick even just like in my body, even just like saying that. But it sent me. Okay. And I was like so terrified for my mother. And I remember like getting sick the next day. And like I assumed it was unrelated. And because of course you're a kid, you don't think about that. Today I'm like, oh no. I got sick because I was like sick with this like information and this energy, and whenever I got sick at a family event, it was always, well, Chrystal just wants attention type thing. And so then it was like, the attention was on me in this negative way. So it was this really like profound moment. I didn't tell anyone that she had said this to me. And of course, she probably got that from her parents and whatever. So I didn't tell anyone until like much, much later in my adulthood that this conversation had even taken place. But I remember just being very like, oh my gosh, like my mom's going to hell. And I just felt terrified for her. I didn't really have a good conception of what that even was, and then of course when I got to Catholic school and then learning about it and a lot of these like stories in the Bible, I was like, I just accepted them. I was like, okay, this is what happened. This is real, and I just kind of let that be. And then as I got older, there was like this real adverse, like reaction. Like it wasn't quite like atheism, but it was like that agnostic, like, I don't even know what is true. And I don't believe in God. And like, I wouldn't even say the name God.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there was a big, big aversion to it.
Yeah.
And, eventually it was like universe, right? And I would claim that I was spiritual,
right?
Not religious. And it's funny, I actually wrote this down last night. Like, I think there are a lot of people out there that say they're spiritual,
Mhm.
but not religious, but they're not actually spiritual. They just
Right.
have been wounded by religion.
Right.
And I
Yes.
and I think that's where I was at. It was like, I'm spiritual, not religious. Like, I believe in something,
Yeah.
but not that.
Yes.
So I went,
100%.
yeah. So I went through
Yeah.
that for a long time, where it was just kind of like, yeah, the universe this, universe that. But I didn't really have like an element of spirituality. I didn't
Mhm.
really know what that would have even looked like, I guess, at the
Mhm.
time. And
Mhm.
so I think, in 2020, going through a certification program, having a spiritual awakening,
Yeah.
and the idea of God, and reading books and just like getting really existentialism. Like, now it was like, I don't want to learn how to be better at business. I don't want to learn how to be better. I want to learn more about, like, where do I come from, and how, like, what
Yeah.
is this? What is all this? And
Yes.
so I think that started, like, I started developing a relationship with God. And it was weird because I had been so, like, the word God, just like, I couldn't, like, say it. It made me cringe. And there was just one day where I was just like, I just prayed to God, you know?
Mhm.
Um, but the God that I understand.
Mhm.
And now it feels really good and it makes a lot of sense and it feels very true to me. Um, and it's funny because I'm sitting in my doctor's office, like, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago. And there's a man there, and I was talking about human design with, like, the one of the nurse guys, whatever. And this guy was like, basically told me I was going to hell. Apparently
Wow.
people feel like the need to share this with me. Um, and I was like, okay, I think I'm good. And he's like, no, because you need to accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior, and you need to do this
Yeah.
and you need to do that. Or like, and I was like, okay. And I was, and I said, well, I'm not, I was just like trying to kind of let it go. And he goes, well, I'm worried about your soul. And I said,
Mhm.
you know what? I'm actually not worried about my soul. I know I'm good.
Mhm.
And my relationship with God is a good one.
Mhm.
And I think I'm
Mm.
okay, and realizing that, like, that was his truth, and that gets to be his truth, and he gets to have that, but I have mine,
Mhm.
and it feels very, very true to me, and I get to have that as well. And none of us, I don't think any of us really truly know what's 100%
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
truth when it comes to God, when it comes
Yeah.
to, you know, why are we here and why do we exist and where did we come from and all of that. So I think it's fine that we all get to have our own idea of this. And I even have clients that are very religious, like very religious, which is funny that we ended up together. And there are some things where they're like, but this isn't okay because this is, like, kind of like goes against, like, religion. And I'm like, your relationship with God has nothing to do with religion. Your relationship with God is yours. Like,
Mhm.
do you feel like God still loves you? Do you still feel like you're okay in
Mhm.
God's eyes? And they're like, yeah, okay.
Mhm.
Then who
Yeah.
cares, like, about this other stuff? Like, there's so much shame around it. But
Mhm.
that's really, like, how I got from, like,
Mm.
just accepting religion,
Yeah.
into now I'm like, I think I have a wonderful relationship with God as I know it
Mhm.
him.
Doesn't it feel so good to come to that place and then also know that there's more there's
Mm,
such a there's this opportunity for even deeper of a relationship and understanding of what God is to you, because
yes.
you're right, we don't know until we die of
Yeah.
what is really, God, and why were we here. We can
Yeah.
have ideas, we can have we can have feelings, and but everybody's truth is going to be different with the way that they have been programmed in this life
Mhm.
through their loved ones, through the society that they're living in, and all of that. And that's their truth. And that was one thing that was difficult for me to get was that whatever I believed, everybody needed to believe it, and everybody
Yeah.
needed to see it this way. And so as I went on my journey of discovering what is God, there was this moment where softening happened, because there was so much judgment, because I grew up in a really strict religion. So I had that conditioning and that programming of God was a very specific way. And as I decided to leave the religion, then it was like, I don't know what God is. And then coming into this place of, this is what I feel like God is, and everybody else needs to see it this way. And it's just not that way. We live in a society, in a life where we all get to have our unique realities and truths. So yeah, there's a couple of things I wanted to touch on, though, that you shared. So I loved your kind of full circle,
Yeah.
that of, when you were younger and having this person say all these horrible things about your mom, and your reaction to that, and how traumatizing it was for you. And then just a couple of months ago, having a very similar experience, rather than this person saying your mom's going to go to hell, you're going to go to hell. And you were good. You were not, there was no disturbance in your system. You were solid in your, no, I'm not, I'm good. And so that's such a beautiful evidence of the work that you've done around death and God and punishment, and what does all of that actually mean? And are there consequences? And if I don't do this and this and this, then that means I'm going to go to hell or to heaven. And yeah. And so for you to get to that place, it feels so good.
Super good. And it's like, there was a point where it almost felt like I wanted to like antagonize people who were super religious, like there was definitely a point in the past where like I would have like challenged it, or I would have been like, oh, okay, and like gone off on this like bender of like trying to like debunk all this stuff that I believe he believes. When in reality, I was like, I just had compassion for him. I was like, I think it's kind of rude to tell someone that they're going to hell.
Yeah.
Period. Even if it's someone you consider to be a really horrible person, it's just like, why would you say that? I think it says more about him than it says about me and where I'm at. And those are his beliefs. He felt like he was doing something right because he's worried about me. And just having compassion for him as a human, and just being like, like, I genuinely believe you're afraid. Genuinely believe you're afraid, but I have zero fear when it comes to God or my relationship or where I'm going after this. None.
So I'm curious, what was kind of your process that you went through, just kind of getting to where you're at now with your relationship with God? What's some things that have unfolded to have you be able to look at it?
So we've talked about this book before, but a long time ago, when I was like 15, I read Conversations with God, and it kind of allowed me to have like a different perspective. This is going to sound ridiculous, but I used to be obsessed with Anne Rice. And she wrote, what did she write? The Vampire Diaries, Interview with the Vampire.
Okay. Yes.
Okay. She had a book called Memnoch the Devil.
Yeah.
And it's fiction, right? But I loved just this idea that like maybe the devil wasn't a bad guy. Like, and the fallen angel and like all of this stuff, and like kind of going into this whole like fictional like world. And I was like, wow, this is like kind of cool. Like I actually really enjoyed all of the story around it, so I felt like that kind of, even just like as like a teenager, just like opened up some like possibilities and perspective that maybe it's not the way that you've always thought it was. And more recently, when I was going through my personal healing journey and really figuring out all those parts and pieces that needed healing and needed love, I felt like I naturally started to gravitate towards that, existentialism essentially. And I read Journey of Souls. And that for me was really mind-opening. That was like absolutely fascinating. Here's this guy who's like a PhD and like very trusted, and he's been doing this for decades, and hearing people, speak on the afterlife and almost identical, right? Like everyone had like this similar experience. And it was just like, wow, you know, it opened it up there. And I was able to like, you know, feel into my body at the time and be like, does this feel true? You know, what feels true about this to me or what doesn't? And kind of using that discernment to kind of piece together how I felt. And I think even just over this last year and even the last couple of months of of praying, and I before it was like I didn't want to pray because it meant that I was like praying to God and I didn't believe in God. So that was
Yeah.
stupid, you
Yeah.
know, or asking the universe for something and because I didn't want it to have a spirit, an entity, or you know, a fullness of like what that would mean if I was speaking to God.
Mhm.
Um, and I realized that I know I mean, I always have known I'm like I'm not the biggest, highest, powerest thing, right? Like humans are not it. There's something that's made us. There's something that's got to be out there that's above us. Like look at the
Mhm.
universe. It's so, you know, there's multiverses and there's just so much out there that we don't know about. So to say that like we're the greatest beings
Mhm.
is so arrogant,
Mhm.
right? Like it's so arrogant. So I know that and I've always like known and understood that. And now it's like realizing that I create my own reality, realizing that like God wants me to win.
Mhm.
And even realizing that there's so much in the Bible that is about manifestation and abundance and like wanting us to have all of this. And I recently started reading the Complete Works, and
Yeah.
there's so many references to the Bible and God and whatever.
Yeah.
And this would have made me cringe. Like a
Yeah.
couple of years ago, I would have been like, I don't want to listen to this and keep talking about the
Yeah.
Bible.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, oh wow, that's really
Fascinating.
cool.
Mhm.
These parallels and all of that because it came from somewhere,
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah.
and there's so much across religions that are so similar. No one wants to really talk
Mhm.
about that, but
Mhm.
there's so much that's the same.
There's some really powerful, beautiful wisdom in all of the religions.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's amazing to be able to kind of pull some of those and create your own belief.
Yeah.
And you know, so it doesn't mean that you have to be one specific thing. I'm big on, man, I don't really like to categorize myself.
Yeah.
Even saying I'm part of the spiritual community, it's like that's also what I've noticed and what I've witnessed a lot of times in the spiritual communities is that they're sometimes no different than the religious communities. You know, they
True.
create their own type of a version of a cult, and there's a lot of judgment, there's a lot of rules. So even that, even if you're not in a specific religion, you can really kind of get caught up in the same exact thing with just a different label to it.
Yeah.
Um, so it's interesting because your process, mine was a little bit flipped. So I dove into the rabbit hole of near-death experiences and
Mm-hmm.
past life experiences. So people that were being hypnotized and then going into past lives and kind of pulling that forward. I also read Journey of the Soul and like so many books. They were just so fascinating to me.
Yeah.
And it was a good little step into getting curious around God and what happens after this life. And it really actually, you would, most people say when you're in a religion, it actually creates this safety around dying and this
Yeah.
this lack of fear. But for me personally, it was the opposite. I was so afraid to die because there were so many rules and I wasn't being perfect at it because you
Mm,
can't. You're human and you're gonna like not do everything perfect. So, but I had that perfectionist in me that needed to have everything perfect. And so I would beat myself up that I wasn't doing all the things. And I'm like, God's gonna judge me and God sees all of this. And so I was just I really feared God. And I don't believe that that's the case or what God actually wants us to do.
oh.
There's nothing to fear, and there's nothing we can do wrong. Literally, there's nothing we can do wrong. We're here
Yeah.
to experience life, and to be able to experience life, you got to touch the stove and you got to see that it's hot. You don't know what actual hot feels like until you experience it. So to say you can't do this and you can only do this,
Mm,
what's the point? What is
yeah.
the point of coming here then? to just be judged and to just be punished. Me personally, Carrie's truth in this moment, and it's constantly evolving, is that I don't believe that that's the way that it is. And so going into people's experiences of experiencing near death was really cool and fascinating to me. And every single story that I read, they loved it. They're like, this is home. It's love. It's all love. I'm like, what? I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. I felt like you should be so afraid because God's going to be there and just like, I'm judging you and I'm looking at all these things that you've done wrong. So, and then I had friends that shared conversations with God with me. I'm like, it has the word God on it. I'm not reading it. It's the same as you.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, I'm like, won't say it. Universe was the only word that I would use because there was so much trauma around God. And I really honestly was like, I don't want to have anything to do with God. God kind of screwed me over. And that's a whole nother podcast on that one. But yeah, I didn't have any interest. So universe felt really good. And I really avoided that book until finally it was just the perfect time. And before that, though, I actually did a plant medicine ceremony, and I was really proud of myself with being in the place that I was, that I didn't want to really, I wouldn't say the word God. I really had just so much like tightness in my system if anybody said the word, let alone like had a conversation about God. But for whatever reason, I was in a place where I was just so curious, and I went into the ceremony and I said, I want to know God, like, show me you. And then the whole ceremony was showing me all of the trauma that men have done to me. And I felt abandoned by God. I felt like, I'm asking you to show yourself to me. I've hated you for so many years that I'm finally saying I want to have you in my life, and you're not doing anything. And all ayahuasca, it was an ayahuasca ceremony, is just showing me all this trauma with men. And it wasn't until after the ceremony, I felt so beat up. I felt so discouraged. I felt just kind of like, all right, there's God again, disappointing me, not showing up when I need him. And that's when I realized, I think God is a man. Mm-hmm. And so ayahuasca was showing me all the trauma that men have created in my life. Yeah. And so the message was, if you think I'm a man, you don't want to know me. Men have only hurt you and abused you. And so then it started this whole process and like new way of discovering and getting curious around, okay, what is God actually? Because I was taught God was a man. God was like a white-haired man in the sky, and we were made in the image of God. And so that was like, oh, wow. Okay. So that's interesting. I actually have this wedge in my relationship with God and blocking it because of my relationship with the masculine. So there's like a whole can of worms that opened. But then I also like had heard so many times that God is not outside of you. God is you. God is everything. God is the bird. God is your home. God is the air you breathe. God is everything. And that was like, that's so hard to understand because my religion brain was like, no, God is in a figure. God is not everything. Like, I need something tangible. I need something to like hold and say, this is God. And so that was hard to believe, but I'm like, wow, what if that's true? And I think that it was in the book Conversations with God. So if you would probably remember it. The analogy that they used is, and this really helped kind of pull it in for my human brain and be able to understand it, was that God is everything. And the way that you could kind of, an analogy that kind of works to help to understand it is, say, God is in this human form. Everything is God. So you are God, but you are not all of God. You are a part of God, as in you're the fingernail of God. You're not the whole God, but you are a part of him. You, like, the fingernail is a part of you. And that, do you remember that? Was that in that book, or did I read it somewhere else?
I think it was.
Yeah. That really landed for me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I get it now. Okay. Now I get it. So everything is God. And I am too. So when I am pushing away God and not wanting a relationship with God, I'm actually pushing away myself and not wanting a relationship with myself. And it was fascinating because when I really was like, I'm done with religion. I'm done with God. I don't want to have anything to do with him, was when I was in the thick of my eating disorder. And I was the most disconnected from myself that I've ever been in my life. And so it's interesting that I had that full on disconnect from God during that time when I was having that full disconnect of myself. It's not as makes sense.
Yeah. And it makes a lot of sense too. Like I feel like the last couple of years, I've really deepened my knowledge of myself and understanding myself and why I do what I do and what I've done. And that obviously brought me closer to God.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. I always say that I'm like, that I'm like underground, like I'm underground woo-woo, because it's like I don't lead with it, right? Like I'm not out there on social media like being a spiritual person, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because like I'm actually gonna read a meme to you because it cracks me up. Like I read this. It says, "My dear, religion is like a penis. It's a perfectly fine thing for one to have and take pride in, but when one takes it out and waves it in my face, we have a problem."
Depends on whose penis it is.
Right. And I was like, you know what? I like, yeah, like I resonate with that because, you know, I think having people just kind of, and I especially think if you are religious, then it's perfectly acceptable to just spout off about your religion, to share it far and wide, to talk about it all the time, and Jesus this and that on your posts, and like I'm a child of God, and just continually, you know, because you have this like package deal where you're like, I'm religious, this is what I believe, or I'm Catholic, or I'm Baptist, or whatever, right? And it's all in there, and this is it. This is what it looks like, and this is me. And I think, you know, for those of us who we didn't know what we were, we didn't know what was us, it's kind of like this. I don't really share, one, because it's very personal to me. Like my relationship with God is very personal to me. My spirituality is very personal to me. I don't feel like I have to prove myself to anybody by sharing this. And it's just like, you know, there are things about my life that are very, very important to me that I don't feel like I have to, you know, lead with, I guess. But I am realizing that when it comes to like business, for example, and coaching, there's a lot of, you know, embodiment and energetics. That's rooted, and there's a lot of spirituality in like what I do. And I don't think people understand that before they start to work with me, because I don't lead with it. And I realized that, like, you know, while I do have some people who are religious, absolutely, and they are, it's perfectly fine and we get on great. I think there's some people who are kind of like, huh, you know, once we kind of get in there. And so I've been thinking, like, is this a part of me I want to share more? Is this a part of me that I want to share, I guess? Because even though I don't 100% know exactly, I don't have a package for it. I don't, you know, my beliefs shift and change as I get new information or as I feel into different things, you know. And you know how the internet is, they will hold you to a tweet you made 400 years ago. So there might have been a little bit of fear. There might have been a little bit of fear about like standing in my spirituality, being like, this is who I am. This is what I believe. I don't need you to believe what I believe. I don't need to impress this upon you. And I don't look down on you for what you believe. You know, we get to have opposing different beliefs. Like, I think it's fine. A lot of people don't think that's fine. Yeah, on either side, there are people who are, you know, spiritual or just non-religious that cannot stand religious people and want to prove them wrong at every turn. And then there's, you know, religious people that listen to spirituality as the devil and all of this. And I'm like, spiritual people don't really believe in the devil. But okay. You know, and so it's like a lot of this like stuff. And for me, like really taking a stand and standing in this and being like, this is me. At one point felt scary, but another, like, I don't even know how to, I almost feel like I don't even know how to do that, or like, how do you even segue into that? Because it's just not who I am as a person. I don't lead with it in general.
Yeah. I know. And it's a little bit awkward when you desire to start sharing
Mm.
about something. Typically people are sharing it on social media, but it doesn't have to be that way. It can be in like
Yeah.
friend circles. Um, and it doesn't have to be necessarily your religious or your spiritual religious beliefs or anything. It can be just anything that you're fascinated in. That could be, there could be this fear of, how are people going to receive this? Are they going to
Yeah.
be open to it? Are they going to be, resistant to it? So there's always this just awkwardness to sharing, hey, I desire to talk about this thing, and that's just there. I'm thinking about the different times that I've shared things where it's been a shift in
Mm.
how I have shown up in the past. And it's always the same. It's always like, oh my gosh, how is this going to be received? And I don't, what if some people aren't going to like me? What if some people are going to judge me? And the thing is that, yeah, it's part of it. And that's okay. That's actually a good thing if you
Right.
choose to see it that way, because now you're weeding out, not that you're better and they're worse, or there is no like hierarchy of it. It's just that you're weeding out people that aren't fully in alignment with your vibration of where it is in this moment, which is, how you believe, how you perceive, how you show up. And that's cool. So then you're tuning into the people that are like, I hear you, sister, and I am
Yeah.
right there with you. And oh my gosh, yes, that resonates with me. Thank you so much for speaking up and sharing those things. That's been my experience when I courageously kind of share something that I've been interested in, and that I've been studying, and it's really been profound for me. And that's the thing that I share, is like, this is, take it or leave it, but this has been impactful for me. And so
Mm.
I can't not share it with you.
Yeah.
That's why I feel like this podcast is so powerful, because there's so many people that really are on this just intense path of discovering, what is God and what is my relationship with God? And to be able to hear other people also on that path, and also, discovering that, or, having some awareness around it, that you
Mm.
hadn't gotten to yet, is so powerful. And then you're attracting in the people that are like right there with you. And it's a cool thing to do, but it takes courage for sure, especially
Yeah.
when you've been talking a certain way and speaking about certain things and not talking about certain things.
Yeah.
But yeah, then in that case, whether it's in business or whether it's in friend circles, they know what they're getting. So instead of like, wait, what are you talking about? Like,
Yeah.
I've never heard you talk about that. It's if somebody hasn't heard me talk about all the things I talk about, then I'm like, you must have been in another room not paying attention. I don't know. Because that's a big thing for me, is that I want people to know, like, this is the way Carrie is. And some
Yeah.
people like it, some people don't. And that's okay. The people
Yeah.
that don't, they'll find their people. And it's perfect.
And I think that's why, like, I have been leaning more towards of like, I want to share this stuff, because it's
Yeah.
not even like I want to even share it for me. It's almost like I do want to share it to like weed people out who are just like not going to accept it. And I think there's such a difference between having your beliefs and then like not leaving room for other people to have theirs, because there are people who believe completely different things than I do.
Mhm.
And they know I don't share the same beliefs with them, but they're like fine with it.
Mhm.
They're just like,
Mhm.
yeah, like,
Yeah.
I mean, they
And
let
that's
me coach them,
awesome.
they let me coach them. So it's like,
Yeah.
they're fine with it, because I'm not sitting here being like, no, like you need to get on board with this.
Mhm.
And I really do love, because I've recently gone through this. I love when I'm sitting with my clients and they are like wounded by God. And they are
Mhm.
like, like they have such a like reaction to that word, because it's just like,
Mhm.
and I'm like, I get it. And I get like excited for them, because I think as they get closer to discovering themselves and getting through this process, they will start to develop some sort of, idea of their own, without the wounding there. Because I think the wounding is like, you don't get a pure idea or vision or belief system, right? Like when your beliefs are based on like wounds, I mean, how true can it really be? Because it's
Mhm,
distorted. It's got all that, janky energy all up in it. But when
mhm.
it's like, no, this is coming from a pure place of like, I'm aligned and in my heart and in my soul, and like I feel this and this feels true. And then it's like you get to have that beautiful discernment. And I have a client who like I don't think we didn't talk about religion or spirituality like at all, like 10 months together, barely talked about it. She did Reiki um this one time and had this like epic like this woman was also a medium, had this like epic
Mm,
event
yeah.
happen. And it was super healing for her. And then of course we talked on that and everything. But I never, we didn't really bring it up or push anything. And like nearing the end of her time with me, like it was like she was like this sponge, like she wanted more. She wanted to know
Mhm.
more. She wanted to know what I thought about this, and this. And I gave her, a couple book recommendations and whatnot. Um, but it was really cool to see that happen very hands off.
Yeah.
Like, no, like I'm not going to impress upon you like things that I believe. I may share with you what I believe in a session or share with you, but I don't know that for sure. That's just what I believe, and so you get to take that or leave that, or you can be mad at me for it.
Mhm. Mhm.
But that's on you, and I feel very comfortable in that these
Mhm.
days.
It's such a good place to be because um, what we know to be true is that our outward world is a reflection of our inward world. And
Mhm.
so if we're having these conflicting relationships with people where we're having all these like arguments about religion and who's right and who's wrong, and also if we're feeling really judgmental towards other people and they need to that's so stupid that they feel this way, or that they see, God this way, or that they believe in that religion, that's a reflection of how we feel about ourselves. So when we're really judgmental of other people, that's just showing us we're extremely judgmental of ourselves. And
Mm.
so when we can come to a place where we can allow people to really truly be in their reality, in their belief systems, and not let it affect yours, like you get to, it doesn't, like they get to believe what they want to believe and you get to believe what you want to believe, and it's okay. That feels so good to be able to allow people to just be who they are and believe what they believe, as long as it's not harming somebody.
Yeah.
It's okay, and we can even be friends, we can even be clients. I remember I had a client one time that was really religious. She was very, very Christian, and she was older, and I was like, I wonder how this is going to go,
Yeah.
because I'm so opposite of her. Here I am like all tatted up, boobs are usually out, and like, and so the opposite of, of the Christian religion. And what I realized is that growing up in the Mormon religion, which they are Christian, is that I knew a lot of lingo.
Mm.
And it's the same thing: God, universe, um good, sending good vibes, prayer. Like, there's so many there. It's like you just one word here in the religion is this word in spirituality. And
Yeah.
so I realized that because of all my years, I was in the Mormon religion for 31 years, of knowing the lingo of religion, I could communicate with my client in like her safety and her comfort of her languaging, and still be in alignment with how I see life and my beliefs. But I was just
Yeah.
using her words because it felt good for her. It was uncomfortable for her for me to say higher self. She felt better about hearing the word Jesus,
Mhm.
and like having Jesus give her those divine messages rather than higher self. And the vibration, she likes to use the word prayer there. it
Yeah.
was so it was so amazing to be able to go, oh, okay, we can work together, and we can have this really powerful experience together and both still be in alignment with our beliefs, and one is not like feeling like they are like letting this person kind of take over the experience, and they don't feel like seen and heard in their beliefs. We can
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah.
It's
Exactly.
so it's so it's so amazing when we can bring in all different cultures and different backgrounds and different beliefs and still all get along. I've also had people in ceremonies that are very, very religious. And that I'm like, wow, that's really cool, because a lot of people that are religious, they think of, plant ceremonies as being
Satanic.
evil. Yeah, evil or like
Yeah.
witchy, or which it's not. It's the opposite of all of that. But I love it. I love it when I have people that come in from religions, and for them to be able to experience it, and that they have the open-mindedness to go, okay, I wonder what this is like. And just this desire to want to understand themselves more, because that's what the plants do. They do such an amazing job at opening and expanding our mind and bringing us inward, so we can understand ourselves better and we can remember what this is all about. So to me, I'm like, it's a compliment to whatever you
Yeah.
believe.
I think it's like,
Um,
you just got to like drop your ego. Like if you're going to be working
yeah.
with people with different beliefs, it's like, just even when we're sitting in meditation, when I explain to someone, I'm like, have you ever sat in really, really deep prayer? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, that's what we're doing. Like that's what we're doing. It feels like this. And I think, they appreciate that. Like they understand it. Like, this is not me telling you have to believe what I believe. This is me being like, what are your beliefs? Where are you at? Perfect. Because it's all in alignment. It's all the same thing. It's all rooted in the same thing, right? Like forget like the extras that man threw on there with the guilt and the shame and the fear and the anger and like the shunning and all of that. Like that's not God's love, but like we don't have to worry about that when we are working together, because it's all rooted in the same thing. We're all speaking the same language with like different accents.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And I believe that we can get to that place. But it starts with you.
Yeah.
You like, we have to, gosh, there's been so much death and war
Mm.
for people, differing beliefs, and religions just fighting other religions. And yeah, it's a big issue. But I am such like we can change that. I don't believe that we are just doomed forever. I feel like we're intelligent as humans, but we do have a ways to go to like really be able to get to like our potential. But we have this ability. We can make a change, and but it starts with us first. And as you are willing to include and accept all people, no matter what race, religion, background that they grew up in, and be able to just have curiosity around, just I'm so curious. Why do you believe what you believe? Not in a way of I need to attack it as soon as you share it, but just out of curiosity. Because when we're willing to really truly listen to people, everybody has a piece of the same thing in there. And really what I believe that what it like boils down to is that people just want to feel like good about themselves. They want to feel like they know that they're going in the right direction and that they're doing the right things, to be able to, just have a lot of religions focus on the afterlife, and like I need to be good here so that I can have this amazing life afterwards. But I don't believe that. Like I believe that
it's like dieting. It's like dieting and restriction.
Exactly.
When you're like, I can't have cakes and this and that and carbs and whatever, and then you're like, oh, and then you lose your shit, and then you like eat all the things. It's like the same thing with like religion and shame. It's just like at a deeper level, and you're like, I can't do anything bad, I can't do anything wrong, and you're going to church every Sunday, but you're like cheating on your husband. It's like there's that restriction and that overcompensation for the restriction that happens when humans when we try to like lock ourselves in a box. It's like
all the rules and restrictions, they never go well in any part of our life. It's so, and the other thing too is that a lot of times people believe that they need to have like a very strict like rule and system and community to be in, because they've been told that if they don't, then they're going to be this horrible person that goes and like you know, does all these like horrible things to humans and to themselves, like, you know, murder someone, or you know, just I could go on and on about like all the things that, you know, that I was afraid of if I didn't follow the religion that I was in. Like, I'm going to be this like person who just like goes and does all these things that are just horrible, and I'm going to and then I'm going to go to hell. But we have this intuitive like system in our bodies of what we know is like right. And I don't even want to use the word good and bad, because there's nothing we can do. We can do wrong. Right. In the fact of, you are so in alignment and so like connected to God, to source, to like all the universe, connected to everything. And when you are, then you're in love. You are in the vibration of love, and everybody benefits from that. Not only do you, but everybody in the world benefits from that. So that's what I mean by right. Not because like you did something wrong, but when we're doing things that don't feel good for us, there's nothing wrong with that. All that is just this internal navigation system that's letting you know, hey, that's not love. That's not love. And so it doesn't feel good. Love feels good. And so, but we have been programmed, whether it's with religion or other kind of communities, that we need this community and we need this religion, because if we don't, we're not going to be able to have that system isn't there. They show us where we need to go and where we need to, what we need to be doing, but it's not true.
Yeah, it's all external, like all this external stuff. Yeah.
And I believe that it can get weakened if you have spent your whole life constantly just letting other people tell you what you need to do. So like the religion that I was in, they told you what to wear, how to talk, what to drink, what not to drink. Like your whole entire life was like very, very laid out for you. This is what you can do, and this is what you can't do. And so leaving that, there's this whole identity crisis and like this confusion on it. I don't even know what I can do and what I can't do and what's right and what's wrong. Like, and am I doing something wrong or am I doing something right? It's really, really confusing, because that intuitive muscle hasn't been very strong. You've let a lot of other people guide you and tell you what to do. So, yeah. And that's why it does feel sometimes like, I don't know if I can choose like what's best for me. And so there is a process of building up that muscle and following your heart, following your intuition. But it's there. There's nobody that's come to this world that doesn't have that. We all have that intuitive knowing of what is right for us. And it's always evolving and changing as we grow and expand. What felt right and true to you 10 years ago is different now. And that's the cool thing too. So then it's not just this boring of like, this is what it always is.
Yeah. Even just like, like refusing to use the word God and like sticking to universe and having zero spirituality whatsoever, but saying that I was spiritual is like,
but that was that was right for you. Yeah.
Like that's what I needed to do at that time, because that's what like I was able to like put that belief in, okay, this makes sense to me, this feels good, this, and then as I've gone inward and grown and evolved and changed, like my ideas about everything have shifted. My ideas about myself have shifted, and then subsequently God, and how God is, like you were saying, like it's in all of us. Like we are God, like we have that, which has been really cool to kind of discover, to kind of, feel into. Like we create our own reality. What? I used to think things were just happening to me, or I was being punished, and it's like, no, like I get to decide really, for the most part, what happens to me and like how all of this works and how I feel. I get to master my emotions, and that's amazing, so it's been really cool. It's been like quite an interesting
Yeah.
journey. And to be able to say the word God, like I
Yeah.
love God, or I like, oh, you know, even just like saying that, I was like, what? Like,
Yeah.
you know, or
Right.
praying to God. And like, I used to not pray at all. And I'm like, wow, I really pray all the time. And it's not, I want this, I want that, do this for me. It's like gratitude. There's so much
Mm-hmm.
gratitude there.
Mm-hmm.
Really
Mm-hmm.
cool.
Yeah, and really, you know, we're always praying, whether it's like intentional. I'm sitting down and I'm going to start speaking to God, because when, you know, if you're somebody that that believes that everything is God, that your thoughts are God, and every time that we're having any type of a thought, we are praying to God, we're speaking to God, we're speaking to ourselves, which we are aspects of God. And so but being so and realizing too that our thoughts create our reality. So it's like whatever you're thinking, you're just going to get more of that. So
Yeah.
then it's like that now. So now it's a matter of, okay, being more conscious about your prayer and what you're putting out there, and so that you create the reality that you desire. And it's not because God's like punishing you, or that God is like rewarding you. It's none of that, because we create our reality. We decide what we experience through our thoughts and our feelings. And then meditation is just listening to God. So prayer is like when we're speaking out the gratitude and we're speaking out our desires. And then the meditation, where we have that
Mm,
space, that's when we're listening. And that's when the
yeah.
information comes through. It's like all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, this is what I need to do. Wow, that was crazy. So
Divine guidance.
yeah, that's the importance about you know, we can, it's important to, you know, have our desires and speak them and speak our gratitude, because when we speak gratitude, we get more of like all the things. And so that's important, but it's also important for us to pause and listen,
Yeah.
and be able to hear like what's the messages coming through. You know, you don't want it to be this one-sided conversation where it's like, give me all these things, you know, I want this, I don't like this, get rid of this. And that's all you're doing if you're not pausing and letting the inspiration come through and the messages from your higher self, from
That's such a
God.
good point. That's
Yeah.
such a good point. And it happened, like I've noticed it so much lately too, that just like there's such divine timing with so many things. And I'll even just have a client be like, oh my gosh, like it's so weird that this happened because then this happened. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, like
Yeah.
I was like, it's so cool how that works. And we're all just like interconnected
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because we all have God in us.
Seriously. And it's like everything is so freaking divine. If you can just pause for a second and just watch how freaking miraculous this life is. I mean, even just if you could just sit and geek out about this human suit that we're in,
Yes.
because it's not the suit, this body that we're in is not who we are. We are so much more than this. Like, and I'm pretty sure it was in the Conversations with God as well. This one was really cool for me, was that our soul is not in the body. Our soul is in the body and out of the body. It actually holds the body, and our soul expands out infinitely. I'm like, oh, now I get it. I get how I can like connect with you all across the country. It's like all of a
Yeah.
sudden we're like, you know, texting each other. Oh my gosh, I was literally just texting you. Like, what? How is that? How does the connection happen like that? How do I send good vibes to somebody? Like, how does it actually get there? Because our souls expand out infinitely. So our souls and our energetic fields can actually touch, even though we're not right by each other.
Yeah.
But what was my point? I went off on a
I
little
know,
bit of
but
a
it's good.
tangent there.
It was so
Dang, I
good.
lost it. But yeah, like our souls are, so we're not these bodies. That's what I was going to say. It's like geeking out on these bodies, just how amazing our hands are, that we have these eyes that we can smell, and that, you know, just even like your knees, how it, you know, it can hinge and create, and the hips can like create all this movement.
Yeah.
And there's so much miraculous, amazing magic in just the human body.
I was thinking about that the other day, which is actually really interesting, about how amazing our bodies are and like the different functions and how we can heal ourselves and like all of this. And I was like, and everyone has one. Like, it doesn't matter what country, if you live in a third world country, you still have this amazing, miraculous body. Like, it's insane, like all
that
of the
has
things
like,
that you can do.
that has a heart that pumps and lungs that breathe, and we don't even have to think about it. It just does it. And that we'll geek out on this really cool robot or like new technology device that's like, whoa, this is so amazing. It doesn't even compare to the human body, but yet we're just so used to it. It's the home that our soul is in. So we don't really realize how miraculous it is. But then if you just start looking outside of you, one of my favorite things to do is hike in Sedona and just sit and just take in everything, take in the beautiful birds, the little trickle of water, the flowers, the breeze in the trees, the leaves, like just seeing the divineness and the godness in nature, and just seeing what a gift it is that we are here and that we get to experience this, and that God created all of this for us, for it to just be able to play in this experience, in this dimension, in this 3D dimension. And that it's so much fun, and everything is literally made out of love. Everything is love. Even the deepest, darkest, shadowiest, most evilest things is still made out of love. Contrast has to happen. There has to be a polarity for us to experience the deepest, most amazing, most connective love. There has to be an opposite of it. So when we realize that, because one would not exist without the other, like there is no evil, there is no good or bad, because if that didn't exist without this, then how is it bad?
Yeah.
But it is there to show us you're in the shadow, you're not in the light, you're not in love. And so it's an opportunity when we go into those places or those like that just doesn't feel good, that we shift and we redirect back into love. That's all it's there for. But it's not bad. You're not going to go to hell if you like, find yourself in a place where you're making choices and you're doing things that are not in alignment with like your truest self and what feels like the best for you. That's okay. It's an experience to learn from. And then you have this opportunity of wisdom coming from that. So it's like, there's a gift in everything, in every experience that we have. And so when I started understanding that, I'm like, God's freaking cool. God's like, I like you. I like, man, thank you. Thank you for creating this. Thank you for making it so perfect. I mean, when you start understanding it, everything is so freaking perfect. And I'm thankful. I'm thankful for my process and my journey of going from in a really strict religion, fearing God, to leaving the religion, hating God, wanting to have nothing to do with it, wondering, is there even a God? I hope there isn't. But if there is, I'm okay with going to hell. It's probably more fun there because there's so many freaking rules in heaven.
Right.
From going from that place to like curiosity around God to where I am now, it's such a beautiful, amazing transformation, evolution, and growth. And I also know that there's still more. Like I shared at the beginning, I'm still on that journey of understanding and creating that deep connection and relationship of God. And
there's so much power though with it coming from you, as opposed to someone telling you this is how it is and then just believing it and blindly following
it. And that's it. So I also want to share that take what feels good for you from what we discussed today, and get curious around that. Don't take it as like truth. Take it and get curious around it. I wonder if that's actually true. I'm super curious about that. And even the things that you're like, nope, don't resonate with that. That doesn't feel good for me. Still be curious about it. Because there's times that people have said stuff to me and I'm like, nope, that's 100% wrong. And now here I am. I'm like, holy shit, totally believe it. Like, you never know.
Yeah.
Or it could be forever not your truth. And that's okay. Like, that's the cool thing about this life. We get to choose. We get to choose what we believe in every moment. And we reserve the right to change our mind. So you can choose to change your mind at any moment. I freaking love it. Nothing's set in stone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love it. So good.
Oh, Chrystal, thank you so much. This was amazing. I love this topic.
Me too.
Yeah. And I'm thankful for you sharing your story and your experience. I love that you've come to the place that you're at right now. It feels really, really good.
I love it too. No, it feels really great to just like feel settled in it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. So, all right, my love. I'm going to put all of your information in the show notes so that people can reach you. You're on all the platforms, right? Facebook, Instagram. Yeah. And you
Chrystal
show
Rose
up.
or xtalrose everywhere.
Yeah. So I definitely want people to follow you. Chrystal does coaching. She does breath work. And she shows up for her communities consistently. And I freaking love that. I love because you care so much and you want to serve. So yeah, definitely go check her out, go follow her, support her. And thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thanks, Carrie.
Yeah. All right. Bye, guys.